Hello, happy Tuesday. I don't know what the weather is like where you are, but here it is snowy and cold, and I just thought I need a warm meal. So, cozy meal. So what I'm doing is making lasagna. I'm going to attach the very quick video of me throwing the sauce into my crock pot today, and that is just over here cooking away. And now what I'm going to do is get some garlic dinner rolls going, and then we're going to assemble the lasagna in a little while. Maybe about an hour we'll assemble it, but I'm going to get the dough going first. So I made a reel for Instagram, and so it's kind of in a fast forward, but I will quickly attach that, show you that, and then we will get to the bread after that. So I have a pound of ground beef that I actually cooked up the day before that I just threw into the crock pot. 1 bottle of strained tomatoes. I like these ones from Azure Standard. A little bit of water to get the rest of the sauce out. A couple teaspoons of beef better than bouillon. Then I just added in some Redmond's real salt and some ground black pepper. Mix it all up. Next up is some Italian seasoning, and you can add in however much your family would like. I added in a couple of teaspoons. Then some garlic powder and some onion powder, and then a couple of bay leaves. The last thing I add is just a little bit of sweetener. I used sucanat, just cuts down on the acidity. I realize that I'm going to need more bread flour than what I have left in my jar that I leave in my pantry, so I wanted to just quickly show you how I store the bulk flour. Things are falling in my kitchen. So I have 5-gallon food grade buckets that I store my flour in. So I store it just in here with the scooper. I do have some 5-gallon buckets that have things like rice and beans that are in like gallon bags, and all stored in one just to keep bugs out. We don't really get mice in our house, although anything is possible, but we, knock on wood, have never had any in our house before. So, but should that ever happen, this stuff is fully protected, as well as if we get any weevils, which we've had before, they will stay contained and not in my pantry. So all I do is, let me see where this one is. I just marked what it is right here. So this is Heritage Bread Flour, which is the flour I'm going to use today. This is from Sunrise Flour Mill. I actually do have a referral code to give you 10% off of your first purchase. It's amazing heritage wheat. And a lot of people with gluten intolerance can actually use this because it is heritage and it's organic, and the way they mill it just keeps it a little more like the original grain that our ancestors ate. So obviously if you have celiac, that is going to be a different story, but gluten sensitivities, a lot of people are able to eat this, especially if they turn it into sourdough. So I need to refill my containers, but I just wanted to talk to you about that. So that's how I store them, and then I just refill them. I always keep jars in my pantry for everyday use. This recipe calls for 4 cups of flour though, so that is why I need to refill it. So I'm going to refill this first, and then we will get going on the bread. All right, back to the recipe. So typically most bread machines, you want to do your liquids first, so that's how I'm doing check your bread machine. So I've got a 1/4 cup of melted butter. Then we need 1 cup of warm milk. I have these organic A2A2 whole milk that were like a shelf stable. They're just regular milk, but they were shelf stable. And I got a couple cases of them at Costco as a backup, and they actually expire next month. So I'm going to go ahead and just use one of those. They're 1 cup worth. But of course, obviously, you could just use your milk. But I just want to make sure we get through these before they expire. this is not something that I would probably use past expiration since it's dairy. So they are 8 ounces, which is 1 cup. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to heat this milk up because you want it warm and not hot. All right, I've got my warm 1 cup of milk and I'm going to dump that right into my butter. Then we are going to do 2 tablespoons of sugar. This is just organic cane sugar. You could probably use honey. And if it was not going to be garlicky, I would maybe do that, but I don't know. I just want the honey flavor to come through. So, all right. Then before we add in our eggs, we're going to add in our seasonings just so that way they're in there. And we are going to do a teaspoon of salt. This is just Redmond's real salt. Okay. Teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to add in a teaspoon of garlic. This is just organic garlic powder. 1 teaspoon of that. And then, I thought I had my oregano out. I'm going to have to, oh yeah, here it is. Okay. My spice pantry is terrible, but I live in a tiny house, so we had to make do. All right, I'm just doing like a 1/2 teaspoon of oregano and a 1/2 teaspoon of parsley. This is a 1 teaspoon measuring, so I'm just guessing. All right, grab that lid. Okay. All right, so just make sure I have everything. All right, so then the next thing I need to add is 2 eggs. And I apologize, this is probably not the best angle, but with my crock pot there, and oops, just, as I said, living in a tiny house, you make do. I don't have a great kitchen for filming videos. All right, we got my 2 eggs in there. Then I'm going to go ahead and do my flour. I need 4 cups of bread flour minus 4 tablespoons because I need to get my Vital Wheat gluten. Hold on. My Vital Wheat gluten. I forgot to grab this out. So if you've never used Vital Wheat gluten, it is like the extra gluten out of flour. It really helps to make your bread light and fluffy. I absolutely love it. So I use this all the time. And so basically you swap out a tablespoon of this for every 1 cup of flour. So if it's a cup of flour, you put 1 tablespoon of this in first and then your 1 cup of flour, because you want to make sure you're 1 tablespoon less per cup, if that makes sense. So what I always do is just add it in first so I don't have to remember. So I have 4 cups of flour, so I'm going to do 4 cups of Vital Wheat gluten into my measuring cup. And it's like, I don't know, not an exact science, I think. Okay. I've got my Vital Wheat gluten in there. I get this from Azure Standard. All right. Then we're going to do the rest bread flour. And we need 4 cups total of bread flour minus those 4 tablespoons of Vital Wheat gluten. So we're going to get 4 cups going here. That's 1. My sauce is smelling really good. So I will make the lasagna first. I will bake that first, and while that rests, then I will bake these buns because they will only take about 20 minutes or so. 2. No. That was my 3rd one. I think. I'm going to have to go back and check. That's what happens when I talk with what I'm doing. I'm pretty sure this is number 4. That was number 4, but you know that because you were watching it and not miscounting like me. Okay, so I've got my active yeast, and I just make a little well in the flour, and it's 2 1/4 teaspoons, which is the equivalent of 1 packet. And I have this really great 2 1/4 teaspoon measuring spoon from King Arthur So that is exactly how much yeast you need. So now the last thing I'm going to do is just close her up, and then I'm going to set it to the bread or the dough function, which I already have, and then I'm just going to hit start. And this takes approximately an hour and a half. Sometimes I watch it towards the end because if the dough gets really large, then I want to take it before it expands all over the place. So I'm going to let this go for the hour and a half and start my lasagna here in just a minute. I hope you can hear me over my bread machine. I'm going to talk louder. So we're going to make our filling for a lasagna before we assemble it. So I've got a 16-ounce container of Nancy's probiotic cottage cheese. I got this in my last Azure order, and let's see if it smells to me. Yep. So ever since we had COVID, a lot of dairy products just smell and taste weird to me. Okay, so I've got my cottage cheese. Then I've got some Rumiano organic shredded Parmesan cheese. And I just keep these in my freezer. Ooh, I didn't think it was open. I just keep these in my freezer for meals like this and whenever we need Parmesan cheese. And this is a 6-ounce container, and I'm going to do, I don't know, maybe half of it. And save the rest of this for a different meal. Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and add in some garlic powder. And then I recently got this all-purpose seasoning. It's the Celtic sea salt brand. It's really good seasoning, really, really good seasoning. So I'm going to go ahead and just add some of that in there. Great. All right. And I'm hoping this will taste okay to me. Like I said, I don't know. We had COVID almost a year ago, and it really did taste good on my, did a number on my taste buds for dairy. So we'll see. I'm hoping that it will be fine. I think I've had lasagna a couple times, not with this particular cottage cheese, but once it mixes with all the other flavors, I think it'll be all right. Okay, so I think that's pretty well mixed together. So I've got my 9x13 pan here, and I'm just gonna go ahead and spray it with a little bit of avocado oil just to help it to not stick. All right, camera a little. So just move this stuff out of the way so I don't spill on it. Got my sauce, and I always start out my lasagna with hot sauce. So you can get the oven ready noodles, which is what I have, but I think if you start out with sauce that's hot, you are going to have a much more successful time baking it in a reasonable amount of time. So I'm just going to get my bay leaves out of here that are outrageously hot. I got to get a tongs. They are too hot to touch. I can see one on the edge there. And the other one here. Perfect. All right, don't forget to take those bay leaves out or someone's going to get a surprise. All right, so I'm going to just take a little bit of sauce on the bottom of my pan. A little bit more. And I'm just going to twirl it around there. Perfect. All right, then I've got these organic, like I said, oven-ready lasagna noodles. Just going to pop them in there. And I don't even remember where I got these from. I don't remember if it was maybe Target. And they do need to overlap a little bit, and that's okay. And we're going to go ahead and take some of this filling and plop it in there. I'm going to take about half. And my lasagna is not like super pretty or anything. Very rustic. There we go. It's very rustic because my bread machine is telling me that if I want to add anything in it, like mix-ins, it's time. All right, so what I was saying is that my lasagna is rustic. I don't worry too much about it being perfect because I just don't care that much. All right, had to wipe my hands off here. Okay. Then we're gonna do some more sauce. Almost forgot about that. Some more sauce over the top. And you want to make sure that you leave enough so like a third of what's left is what you want to use on here. The rest of it will seep through. All right. Then we are going to take more lasagna noodles. And I am very well aware that somebody probably makes their lasagna different, and that's great. This is how I make it for my family. All right, now we're going to put the last of the cottage cheese mix on here. And you can do as many layers as you want. I just do 2 layers of the cheese just because just is faster. So and it does kind of spread out once it starts heating. Alright, and we're going to do some more sauce. Then we're going to put another layer of noodles over the top. And then we're going to add the rest of the sauce. Okay. Then 4 more noodles for this pan. Kind of depend on your size pan, of course, how many noodles you will need. Perfect. Okay. Now I'm going to put the rest of my sauce on here. I gotta get something different to get the last bit out of there. Just kind of push it around. We're going to cover this to keep that moisture in there, and that's going to help those noodles cook. But like I said, the hot sauce really gets a good start on those noodles. I feel like whenever I've used like room temperature sauce or cold sauce, it just takes so long. And these noodles are a little small for this pan, but my other one is a little too low that I was afraid it would kind of go over on the sides, and I just didn't want to deal with a mess in the oven. So that's it. I'm going to cover it, and I'm going to bake it for 45 minutes like this. Then we're going to uncover it and add cheese to it. But if I add the cheese now, it's just going to totally be way too melted on there, and I don't want that. So into the oven, cover it into the oven for 45 minutes. All right, it's a half hour or so before my bread machine is set to be done, but it's almost to the top. So I've got my 9x13 pan here with my avocado oil spray. I'm just going to spray that really good. I'm going to flour my surface. I don't know how wet the dough is, so I just put a little bit on there and we will see. And plug it now so I don't forget. And you can see that the dough is almost all the way up to the top, so that's why I just stopped it. There we go. All right. I'm going to take my mixer piece out. All right. And I'm just going to kind of see how sticky the dough is. The stuff that was at the bottom is a little stickier. I'm just going to knead in a little bit of flour, just so that way when I'm cutting it, it doesn't stick as bad. Now you could get out your scale, which I do often do when I'm making hamburger buns, but because these are just dinner rolls, I'm not that concerned about them being all perfectly the same size. All right, I'm going to cut my dough in half. I'm going to set half off to the side. Okay, then I'm going to cut each half in half. That. Cut this one in half. This dough is not sticky, which is nice. Okay. Perfect. So now we've got 4 and my goal is 12. So we're going to take each of these and I'm going to do my best to cut them into 3 even pieces. I find that doing it kind of in a oval shape is a little easier. Then I'm going to take my dough and I'm just going to form a little ball. I just kind of tuck under and then put that in there. Same thing with this, just kind of grab the sides and pull it down and form it into a ball. So, see if I can show you. See, so it's kind of like that and like that. I just kind of keep pulling down on the sides and pinching it at the bottom, and then that forms that smooth piece at the top. All right, got one row done. So I'm just going to keep on forming these. These are definitely smaller than those ones. That's all right. I'm not too worried about it. Like I said, when I do buns for burgers, I try to make them even, but dinner rolls, I just don't even worry that much. So I'm going to keep working on that. Right, so I went ahead and just threw a tea towel cloth over it to just keep them from drying out and keep some of that heat in. My oven is on still from my lasagna, so I'm just gonna let that heat help these rise a little faster. I'm hoping that they'll only need about a half an hour for a second rise. We'll just kind of see when they are about doubled in size. All right, this lasagna was in there for 45 minutes. You can see the noodles look like they're getting nice and soft. And so I've got some mozzarella cheese here that we just shred up and we freeze. We get it in 5-pound blocks. And I just freeze it and we use it from frozen without any problem. So, oops, just dropped a big clump here. All right. So, what I'll do is I'm just breaking it up a little bit. Is just take some of this Parmesan cheese, sprinkle it over the top. You could add more. Did I say Parmesan? Mozzarella. I don't remember what I said. This is mozzarella, not Parmesan. If you have Parmesan, you could add that on here as well. I already put some in the middle, so I'm not going to add any more. I'm actually not a big Parmesan fan. So, just going to sprinkle this cheese on here. And yes, it is frozen, so it's going to take a little longer, but it's not that bad. It's really not. That cheese melts so fast, and they're pretty small pieces when they're shredded, so for me it's worth having one it shredded and ready to go. I hate shredding cheese, so we just pull up the KitchenAid and we have a day of shredding, and then I'm good for a couple months usually. Okay, and the amount of cheese is really ultimately up to you. I think that looks good. So then what I will do is just pop this back into the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes till it is gooey and got a little bit of browning on it. Hopefully by then my rolls will be ready to go into the oven, and then I let this sit for about 20 minutes before we eat it, so it kind of like the noodles absorb all the liquid and it kind of stays in its shape a little better. My lasagna is out and done, and I am just going to cover it so that way it stays nice and warm. And then I'm going to put my buns in the oven. They rose up really nice. This is a tiny little baby one. Okay, I've got some melted butter. Then I am just going to brush over the top of them. They smell delicious. Okay, perfect. There we go. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop these into the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. All right, these buns are done, the rolls are done. They smell amazing. They look amazing. If you're not making bread from scratch, you are missing out. It's so delicious, and if you use really good grains and good quality ingredients, it could be good for you. I mean, bread has a lot of negative things about it, but when you're using good quality heritage wheat and good quality butter and ingredients, it's good. So that's that. I'm going to share a picture of the entire dish, and we're going to eat.